All right, we're back. Another episode of Brothers on the Green. Unfortunately, not our best week last week, but it was a weird tournament. We'll give a quick recap on what went down last week, and then look forward to the Memorial this week. Usually a great event,
Yep.
produces good leaderboards, right? Tough golf course that's very demanding from tee to green. So we'll get into all that in a little bit. But good win for Ben Griffin. I mean, the guy's just been playing solid golf all year. He's tee to green, very solid, putter solid.
Yeah.
He really was pretty soft coming down the stretch, but fortunately was able to stick it out by one.
hmm
And he had a great interview after, right? Really how much it meant to him and his family to get a win and to put himself in this sort of position, locking
Yeah.
himself on tour for at least a couple of years, right? So it was nice to see that from him.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he's been a solid player for the most part. I mean, I think going back to last year as well, I think he had a couple seconds, has been playing well pretty much all year. He won the Zurich with Novak, but obviously getting your own win, really like solidifying yourself as a real winner on the tour, obviously a big step for him. And then you see a couple guys saying, potential bet page stuff, sort of getting himself into the mix there just because really you could say like the 7 to 12 spot on the American team is really up for grabs still at this point. So a big win for him, moving himself up with the points, and obviously, getting into the discussion that every player wants to be in.
Yeah, no, I mean he's in contention for it without a doubt. Like you said, I mean there's like we were saying there's probably seven locks and then that 8 to 12 is, completely wide open for the taking. So
Yeah.
that solo win after coming off the Zurich, that's two wins this year.
Yep.
I could see Ben Griffin and Novak getting a nod if they continue to play well, considering, they played well together in that team event.
I know I mean, it's crazy to say, but Novak even played pretty well again this week. He's been playing well all year, almost knocked off the RBC Heritage. What was that, before the Zurich, I think. So, I mean, both of them, like you just said, could be a pretty good team, showed that they work together as a team, but still at the same time, at least for myself, just like hearing Ben Griffin and Andrew Novak, if you just say like 5, 6 months ago, are going to be on the American team or even this much in this discussion, I would be like, almost like who are those? Not quite who are those
Yeah,
guys. Like,
pretty much.
how is that even possible at this point?
Yeah, no, it's shocking, right? I mean, you got Finau fell off, Wyndham Clark,
hmm
right? A lot of the guys that you expect to be there, Sam Burns.
That mid-tier range just isn't really, performing well this year for the most part.
No, not at all. So again, good for Ben. That was a big win, right, for a guy in his position. And
For
then we
sure.
got the other guy I want to talk about was Fleetwood. He finally put himself in a spot. Obviously, he was five back going into the back nine, but just not to make any sort of run and make any putts or do anything productive,
Yep.
was disappointing. And he's playing so well, it's just solid round the bag. He just can't get it going on Sunday when he's semi in contention.
Yeah, and he did it right the front nine. He was 3 under through eight, had to chip in on nine to get the 4 under, get to 10, and I think Ben was at 15 at that point still. So, you're not quite really in contention too much, but he was second place on the leaderboard, so obviously that means something. And for him, anytime he gets into that spot, it seems like it's the same story, whether that be missing putts, starting to, miss a couple iron shots left or right, whatever it might be, just can't really keep himself in it. And at least, I was tracking him a little bit come Sunday just because, our guys really weren't in it at that point. And if he gets to -12, especially with what we saw out of Griffin when he really had no one charging too heavy outside of Schmid, I think that's his tournament, no doubt. I mean, if he just gets two birdies on the back nine and is able to
Yeah.
par outside of that, it really could have been his first win just sneaking in the back door by shooting a 6 under, which I, very solid round, but nothing like he didn't have to do anything too crazy, to be honest.
Yeah, and he was there right after that front nine. He was
Right
putting
there.
himself in position to do that. But
Mhm.
another week it doesn't pull through. It does feel like he's gonna get that win soon, but
He's putting better with the
got to
spider. I
do
will
it.
say
Yeah,
that. The spider looks a little bit better in his hands, but I mean, you look at hole 11, he had the par 5, he par 10, solid par, and then 11, striked his drive, just bounced into the fairway bunker, hits a decent layup shot, and then, I mean, he just drills it over the green, screws himself over, and can't get up and down for par. And that was, pretty much, it felt like, at least in the moment, the end for his chances. But yeah, like you said, it should be chances coming for him with how he's playing, but he's been playing well pretty much his whole career, and it seems like he just isn't able to capitalize, and we have to just wonder when that or if that will come at this point.
yeah, no, 100%. So let's get into the Memorial.
Yeah.
Again, like we said, it's a great event, right? It's Jack's event. He always has this course playing tough.
Hmm.
It's been very firm the last few years. I think they did a renovation a couple years ago, which
Yeah.
those new green surfaces, whatever reason, they are rock solid.
Like trampolines.
Wherever it happens, right? There's renovations all over the place now, but it
Yeah.
gets the course firm for a couple years. So obviously, right, last year Scottie won, not shocking.
Yeah.
Morikawa came in second at -7, and then Hovland won right the year before, got his big win over
Yeah.
Denny McCarthy in a playoff. Scotty, right, finished one out of that playoff. So, it's a course where you got to be solid off the tee, you got to be solid coming into the greens,
Yeah.
which is why Scotty has had so much success here.
Exactly. And Cantley's had a little bit of success. I know a little
Yep.
bit farther back. I forget exactly what years, but I know he's knocked off a couple of wins here. And the Collins, I mean, I don't think he's won yet, but he's played well here. He lost to, like you just said, Scotty by one last year. He lost to Cantley in a playoff. I think he has like a another second outside of that. So it's like we said, you have to hit fairways, ball striker paradise. That really does fit Collin. But yeah, I mean, it should fit his game. He's obviously played pretty well here throughout the years.
Yeah, I mean he's got a hit. Obviously, he's a little shorter than a lot of the top guys, but he just when he's flushing his irons, he can compete with anybody. And it's a course where, he doesn't have, you don't have to go too low. So, you're
Exactly.
putting,
Not to
if he
make too
just
many.
puts average, right, then, he'll give himself a chance most of the time. The last couple months, right, haven't been his best golf
Yeah.
ever since he made those stupid comments, like you were saying before it started.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Again, it's going to be a fun week of golf. It's a great golf course, and we'll get into that golf course now. So four par fives, right, makes it a par 72.
Hmm.
Some very long par fours. There's really some meaty parts of the course, right?
Yep.
Looking at the breakdown, the first four holes all play over par, right? They're tough golf holes. Number five is the par five, one of the easier holes on the course.
Yeah.
Set ranked 17th last year, in terms of the easiest. And then number seven, another par five, easy. The rest of that front nine is pretty tough. I mean, all the rest of the holes all play over par. And it's a brutal test of golf. The back nine, right, number 10, played as the two second toughest hole last year. And really the only other holes that are under par are 11, 15, which are the par fives, and 14 is the short par four. We're not you don't really ever go for it, but it is just a layup and a wedge.
I saw like the outside of the par threes. I think it's still only like 67 or 70% driver. So even though it's longer for the most part, there still are those holes, especially with how penal the rough is, where you gotta just get it out there, have a longer iron in than what you might like to. But that's just sort of how the course sets up. It seems like.
Yeah, there's a few holes where it's just cuts off the fairway, right? And you got to lay up. It's really the only option. Like a number three, I believe it is, short par four, but you got to lay up. And a lot of the fairway bunkers come into the play at a course like this. So they did a good job positioning them in the renovation, and it's again, it's just a great golf course. So
Yeah.
we'll have a lot of big names at the top of the leaderboard, I'm sure. Again, bent grass, which a couple of your guys that you like this week, you're looking at those bent grass types of players.
Yeah.
Just in terms of putting, really is the main thing there, being comfortable on that type of grass.
Yep. And then also just a couple of other quick things about the course itself. So obviously we sort of discussed it, but very, very penal with rough, accuracy off the tee is going to be a very big thing. Just what I saw, it's the highest missed fairway penalty and then rough penalty on tour. So sort of goes with what I just said. Got to make sure you're getting yourself in the fairway to give yourself a chance going into these greens. To go along with that, it's also the toughest course to gain strokes on approach over the last 4 years. So it seems like that goes with the around when the renovation took place. It's just very hard to one hold these greens, but also they're just like very small greens on top of being
Yep.
as firm as they are. So it's sort of like both of those put into play together just makes it very tough. Obviously, like we said, getting off the tee, and if you're not in the fairway, hitting these greens is almost going to be impossible in a lot of places.
Yeah, and that's why chipping on a course like this is important, and that's when Hovland, right, was chipping well a couple years ago when he got the win here because everyone's going to miss greens no matter how well you're striking it. And a lot of times you're going to miss it deep, which is normally a tricky chip shot. So you got to be dialed in with your chipping and pitching the ball around here.
Yeah, and then also we talked about it before we got on, but like that apex for some guys, it's going to be really big. Whether that mean a little bit more distance off the tee, so you have a smaller club in, or some of these guys are really able to launch their ball a little bit higher and get a little bit softer landing coming into these surfaces.
Yep, 100%. So we'll talk through some of the players, right? Scottie, we spoke about the four favorites are Scottie, Xander, Morikawa, and JT.
Yep.
Collin, I guess, deserves to be in there, but he hasn't won in 2 years and he hasn't been playing golf in the last month or two. Now
Exactly.
that I'm focusing on him, he'll probably win this week, but
Yeah.
Scotty's just back to Scotty.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I mean. It's just like it's another elevated event where it's all about ball striking and hitting fairways, hitting greens, getting up and down when you need to. And we know literally all those things across the board. Scotty's the best at each and every one of those. So I mean, he's plus 280. That's very like a very reasonable number for him, to be honest, at this point with how well he's playing. And I mean, I wouldn't be shocked at all if he did win this week. I'm hoping he isn't because I'm still not going to take a plus 280. But I mean, he's obviously the biggest threat, and he's going to be tough to beat again.
Yeah, plus 280 is really crazy. I
But
mean,
it's reasonable, like especially ever since obviously past couple of years, but this year specifically since the injury, ever since the CJ Cup, even going back to last week, he didn't really have it, tweaked his back a little bit, but still somehow was able to shoot, what was it, like 7 under on Saturday, get himself into a
yep.
little bit of contention. And anytime you see Scotty's name up there, no matter really who you are at this point, it puts a little bit of more thought in your head, especially come the weekend.
Yeah, he just like gravitates to the top of leaderboard. Whatever's
Every
happening out there, he just figures out a way to get himself up there. Sunday, I guess he didn't play great, obviously. Wasn't able to watch, but
Just gonna make putts.
yeah,
Yeah,
he is human after all.
exactly. But Xander and Collin are right under him, both 16 to 1. And then right under there, like you said before, is JT 18 to 1. And to be honest, I know it's not a big difference, 16 to 1 compared to 18 to 1, but I really don't see any reason why Xander or Collin, especially at this point with how JT's played all year, are above him on the odds board, a bit lower odds. I really don't understand it with how they've been playing all year, the results, especially JT winning so recently. So, I mean, I think if you're looking at those three as a whole, like right under that 20 to 1 range, my preference would be simply JT based on obviously getting a little bit more juice, but also just if you're comparing the three, he's been the best player so far in 2025.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
He's definitely been by far better than both of them this
Yeah.
year.
Xander's finding it a little bit, I would say. He looked better. Like the PGA, he found his driver a little bit. It seemed like the irons let him down from what I was watching of him. And he's still trying to find, I mean, I don't know what you think, but at least to me, it seems like he's still trying to find, his whole game, like driver,
Yeah.
approach, around the green, and putting in a week. It seems like, he's getting one here, one there. Once, obviously, at a certain point, he will put it all back together. And, he's going to break through again soon enough with coming off the year he had last year.
No, I feel the exact same way. It's kind of like his like B minus C game he's got going on just in
Yeah.
the totality of it.
Mhm.
But he has one piece that's always working for the week. The PGA, like you said, his irons were not dialed at all. Sunday he played better, tee to green,
He's
but
so deep though. He's
just
so
such oh yeah, he's nuclear.
oh my God.
He's absolutely nuclear. And then his short game was what let him down earlier in the year. Now it's come back a little bit. So, like you said, it's only a matter of time before he puts that together and, starts really, at least he's got to put himself really in contention and then he'll start peeling off wins again.
Yeah, exactly. Because he's one of like I think especially now after you got like two major wins like you did last year, it just one of those things when you get into contention. Like obviously he's been playing well like we said, but he hasn't been in real contention thus far this year where he's really getting those emotions flowing that you feel when you're in those environments. And I feel like compared to the rest of the guys on tour, he's probably one of the top players when he has all that going on in those moments.
100%. Yeah. He's
Yeah.
probably the second best, third best player in the world.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. All right, so go
So,
with that. You want to do anything else with that top range, or good to move
no,
on?
I think that sums it up perfectly.
All right, so good there, and then we got like our middle range starting off with Cantlay at 22 to 1. We got Ludvig 25 to 1, Hovland 28 to 1, Fleetwood 28 to 1, Corey Connors at a 30 to 1, Hideki 35 to 1, and then to wrap up the 30 range, Spieth at 35 to 1.
Yeah. So, a few guys that haven't been playing great, right? I mean, Ludvig, he has
Been
not
off.
been playing good golf at all. this is the type of course that would suit him perfectly when he is swinging it well. I mean, he's just accurate to come off the tee and long, solid iron player, solid putter.
Yeah.
So, I could see him having a good week this week, even though he's not been playing well. But it's tough to take him when he's around those types of names, considering what his results have been. And he really just has not felt close in a couple months now since his win, really.
His iron type, it seems like it just his approach play has been pretty like I looking at his numbers at least off the tee, they seem all right. Just his approach play has gone, down the drain.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with that on Ludvig. Still like obviously we know his talent, solid number, but just his form hasn't shown anything where it really would give you a sign that he's going to compete at a course like this week. But outside of that, also in the range, you got Fleetwood 28. I would like Corey at this course, but I just think 30 to 1 with like Hideki above him, you got Berger above him, Lowry above him, Finau above, and I like him at this course. He's been playing well this year. I just think that's a pretty awful number for a guy like Corey.
Yeah, no, I agree. That is a bit of a stretch. He's a ball striking machine, but he's got to put it all together, right, to get this sort of
Exactly.
win, which would be by far the biggest of his career. So,
Yeah,
I fully agree with everything you just said. It's his type of golf course, but there's a lot of other value out there around that.
exactly. Yep. And I mean, same thing with like Spieth is 35. I love Spieth, and I take him at lower numbers in some of these alternate events, obviously without some of these other bigger names that we have this week. But I think 35 to 1 compared to like some of these guys will go over in a little bit, a bit higher on the odds board, some more juice. It's absurd to me, especially with how they played this year. And I mean, you could really go back the last year and a half, 2, 3, 4+ years with comparing some of those guys below him.
Yep, 100%. And then Hideki, right? He's won here
Yep,
11 years ago now, so it's been a long time since he's won.
that's crazy.
Uh, but he's played well. He's had a couple top 10 years in the last few years.
Yeah,
I think he's a guy that I'll be keying in on this week. Just because, like you said like a month ago, doesn't really matter what he does the week before. He can pop up at any time and get it going. All he needs is a couple good rounds with the putter and he'll be in a good spot come Sunday.
I agree. I mean, I feel like he's been striking it pretty well, for the most part, just with the events when he has struck in it pretty well. His putter has been so horrific. Like, I was on him at the Truist. I think he had like literally one of his worst days ever putting, then one of his best days ever, and then two more of his worst days ever. So I mean, he's just been a bit up and down, at least with the flat stick. But we know how good he is, like from tee to green. And if he has that game this week, course like this, that sort of slims the field of who really can compete at a course where you have to be so precise throughout the bag.
Yep. So who else you want to talk about in that range?
That range, I mean, Hovland, I think is interesting. Previous winner, 28 to 1. He's just been, I was on him a couple times this year. One time when he won PGA Championship a couple weeks ago. So, I mean, I think the number is okay, but I just don't think he's still secure enough about his game where I want to go back to him at that range again compared to some of those guys that have a bit more juice on their name.
Yeah, and I feel like it's a pretty similar setup to the PGA in terms of the length of the course, the
Yeah,
firmness
exactly.
on the greens, and just the overall layout. So I do agree, Hovland. It's probably going to be tough this week when you're not feeling great about your swing to put it together for 4 rounds around
Yeah.
a place like this. But it's Viktor Hovland, so you never know when that could pop up.
No, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all. It's just, probably something I won't be biting on at that number this week.
And then in the other, so we go down a little bit. There's a few guys that do interest me in that $4,000 to $5,000 range, right? I may not be betting them outright, but
Yep.
I do like where Finau's game has been trending. Top 20 at the PGA and at the Truist.
Hmm.
RBC didn't play great around the greens, especially,
It's
but
not a course for him though.
the RBC,
Yeah, no, it's just
no.
no.
I agree. But the last 3 weeks, he's been at least positive in putting, which is key for him.
It's
He
everything.
could just be average to above average. He's going to have solid finishes, right? His approach play last at the PGA, he gained 1.5 total strokes.
Yep.
Off the tee, he gained zero point 0.3 strokes, right? So he gained over 2 strokes total at the PGA, which is very solid.
Yep.
So I could see Tony having a solid week around a course like this.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with that. His game's really rounding into form, and I've mentioned it, I think, a couple times in a couple episodes here that I think he'd be a very good player for Bethpage if he finds his game. I mean, his game is pretty much made for a course like that compared to, some of those other guys we were talking about earlier. But
Yep.
that's another conversation either way. But I agree. Finau could be a good play for this week at 45 to 1. But I mean, one name that sticks out right away to me is Straka. He's at 45 to 1 again. And I really just can't figure out why he is so low on the odds board, like consistently, when like all his numbers show that he's a top five player, at least on the PGA Tour, literally like all throughout 2025. And you could either even go back a little bit maybe to parts of 2024, but especially this year. I mean, he's been a elite player and he just continues to be in a range that I don't think is fit for like how good he's been playing.
Yep. No, he's very, very solid in all aspects of the game. When he
Yeah,
gets that putter going for the week, he's going to be in contention, right? There's no doubt about it.
that's
He
really it.
absolutely flushes the ball.
Yep.
All
But I mean,
right.
outside of that, do you got anybody else
Yeah, I
like
mean, we
that?
talked about right, we talked about Lowry. Berger is a guy, right, that he's striking the ball great. His putter has not been as good the last month or two.
Yeah.
So, McCarthy, right, is finishing a playoff here. Don't know, it's not really a great setup for him in terms of having to be great from tee to green, but he is
I just don't
putted.
track. Exactly. I don't know like how well he's playing right now, to be honest.
Yeah, he's not missing really many cuts, but he's not really doing much either.
Yeah.
In his, throughout the bag. His wedge play is all right. His irons are all right. His driving's pretty consistent. But when it comes to that putter, he is probably the best on tour.
Yep. No, I mean, any guy, it seems like any guy you ask whenever you got one of those videos, it's always Denny when they talk about the flat stick.
Yep. All right, so you want to get into our picks?
Yeah, let's just go over some of our plays for the week. So I'll start off with my first one at the bottom of the board. We talked about him obviously a little bit earlier, but I'm going again back to Justin Thomas at 18 to 1 this week. I think you've been on him maybe once this year, Bob, but I know I've been on him at least a couple times this year. And although he has been bad in major championships, the Masters, the PGA, he made the cut at the Masters, didn't really do much with it, missed the cut at the PGA. So I know obviously, that hasn't been pretty for him. But if we're talking about PGA Tour events, he's been, I think pretty much contending week in, week out at this point for whether it be smaller event, elevated event, whatever one he's playing in. If it's not a major championship, he's going to be competing come Saturday, Sunday with the way he's playing. And just a couple numbers. Going back to his last start at the Truist, again, a bent grass there. He gained 5 strokes on approach, and then he also gained over 2.2 off the tee. And we've talked about it a bunch with JT. His weakness, if we're going to pick out one, is off the tee. So I like seeing that. If he can, continue that a little bit, get himself in the fairway, he's a top three player on tour coming into these greens. So 18 to 1, like we were talking about, a little bit more juice than Xander and Collin, especially with his form. I love that number. And I think come Sunday, if he, again, is like, executing how he wants, he should be in a good spot.
Yeah, it's going to come down to the driver for him this week, right?
Yeah,
Just
I
making
agree.
sure he can at least hit, 60% of the fairways, whatever that number is that he has in his head, because his short game and putting has been very, very good this year.
Yeah,
So,
his putting, he's been a top, I don't know exactly, I think 15, 20 putter on tour. And obviously, like we said, with his approach play, it really just comes down to putting himself in the fairway.
yep. So my first guy this week, my lowest odds is Hideki plus 3,500. Like I spoke about, he won here over a decade ago now, so that doesn't really have much to do with the pick
Yeah.
this week. But he's got good course history, right? He has a couple top tens since then, right? He had a
Mhm.
top 10 here last year. He was tied for eighth. So he's a guy that interests me. He has been, a little bit all over the place, really, in terms of his game total, right? His last three events, he finally has gained strokes putting. The
Yeah.
four events prior to that, he lost strokes putting. So he's been better on the greens, which is obviously key. His approach play, four of the last five, right? He's gained strokes. Off the tee, three of the last four, he's gained strokes. So he's coming together a little bit in terms of his total game. So I could see him, right? All he needs is that good first round, get himself into a good spot. And Hideki does know how to finish events. So I'm on Hideki this week plus 3,500.
And I love Hideki this week. I think 35 to 1 is honestly a pretty solid number. And I've been on him a couple of times, hasn't worked out for me yet. But like you just talked about, we talked about it a bunch on the couple of our episodes, that if he's putting well, it should, really match up well with him with how good he is throughout the rest of the bag, especially, obviously with the iron game.
Yep.
All right, so then for our my second, I know you're on him as well, so sort of just a both of us will be on him this week. We have Shane Lowry at 40 to 1. And I know this is really, I mean, this has been Bobby's guy all year. He's been on him, I think, maybe 4 or 5 times. And I might be underestimating
Mm.
it, to be honest, because it was like 4 straight weeks at a certain point. But overall, Shane's played great golf this year. Like going back to his last start, he wasn't able to close out the truest. Sepp Straka obviously, pulled that away from him in a sense come the end of Sunday. But overall, still, he's been played great golf all year. At the truest, he gained 6.7 on approach. He's gained over 1.4 shots gained tee to green throughout 2025, and that's second on tour. So also, just being one of the best tee to green players, we talked about how much that's going to matter this week. So I mean, all that being said, he's due for a win, whether that be, at a big event like this or wherever it may come. How well he's been playing and on a consistent basis, he's due to knock off a win at a certain point.
Yeah, exactly. Really, I agree with all the stats, right? They're very clear. You watch him and he's striking the ball great. He's finally figured out the driver a little bit too over the last month.
Yep.
It's just a matter of time, right, before he gets that win. And I could see it being at a course like this where, probably 7 to 10, maybe 12 under at max wins it. And really it's going to be come down to his putter. I
Hmm.
mean, he missed a couple putts coming in at the truest. His putting has been shaky all year. I mean, he gives himself so many chances, so that is a part of why he does miss, I feel like, a
Exactly.
decent
Yep.
amount of 8 to 15 footers.
Mhm.
But if he can just get that ball rolling, especially on the weekend, right, which has been his kryptonite this year, it's just a matter of time before he peels one off.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and also you just saw how not defeated, but just how much it really hurt him to obviously lose, but just I think it was more so finishing off the way he did after losing to Sepp at the Truist, and I think that could be a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and hopefully he just responds the right way, and if so, especially with like we said how well he's been playing all year, it should give him a pretty solid chance again come the weekend.
Yep. So my third pick, I guess, officially is Siwoo Kim plus 4,500.
Ooh.
He's been top 15 here in the last 3 years, so he's played great golf around here. He hits the ball very straight. He is a great iron player, and his putting, really hasn't been too bad. He's been all over the place in terms of which putter he's using and whatnot. But the last two events he has gained strokes putting, which is huge, right? The T8 at the PGA, he was in contention, played good golf, 71, 73 over the weekend, so he kind of fluttered out a little bit. RBC didn't finish well on Sunday, right? But he gained over 2 strokes, 0.84 on the putting green, over 2 strokes total there and at the PGA. So he's been playing great golf. And same story with Lowry. I really just feel like it's a matter of time with the way his game is right now that he's going to get another big win, right? He's got the players win a long time ago at this point, but he's only 29 years old. I mean, he's getting into the prime of his career right now. And I could see him peeling off a win like this. So I like Siwoo plus 4,500.
I love, yeah, I mean, I love that. He's been playing great for, it seems like for a couple months now, at least. And I really like the broomstick in his hand like he had last week compared to the blade. So hopefully, I'm just hoping he commits to that. And if so, with his, like we just said, tee to green game, if the putters continues to cooperate, somebody should continue to compete at these big events.
Yep.
All right, so good there. And then so for my third pick, we talked about a bit in like that 40 plus to 1 range. I'm taking Sepp Straka again at 45 to 1. And I love the pick with the number itself and everything like that. I'm not sure if he's going to win back-to-back elevated events, 3 so far in 2025 and not even halfway through the year, but it's just simply a number I can't resist. Like he's a top 5 player on the PGA Tour and he's priced like he's a 20 to 25 range on the PGA
Yeah.
Tour, so I really don't understand it. He won the Truest, obviously. He's ninth in shots gained tee to green so far in 2025. He's second in shots gained approach. And then also one big thing that we talked about Bobby this week is that he's 11th in driving accuracy as well. So I mean first off gets himself in the fairway, and then he's very precise coming into these greens. And with how firm they are and how small they are, that's what you need. So I mean, I think it's a perfect course fit for him, to be honest. And I simply don't get the number. So 45 to 1, Sepp Straka talent, how well he's playing on top of that. It's just, I mean, it's too good of a number.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a machine. I love everything about his game. He's very confident right now. He'll probably have his caddy back this week, right? I'm sure. And he's just once he's rolling the rock well, he's going to get himself in contention just because of how solid he is from tee to green, right? And his chipping has been good, right? What are the stats chipping? They solid?
They're all right. I mean, to be honest, I would like to see a little bit better. If you're, comparing the stats, that's his worst position on the PGA Tour, like, rank wise, but he's still solid. But at the same time, he really doesn't even put himself in that position, quite as much as everyone else. But obviously, either way, of course,
Yeah.
like this, we whole need that. But I just think 45 to 1, regardless of what those chipping stats say, it's just, I mean, I can't believe the number every time.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely deserves. I think he has a good a chance as Cantlay and Ludvig and Fleetwood and Victor and I think he has a better chance than Corey Connors,
Yeah, 100%.
to win a golf tournament like this. So I think it's a lot of the just name value, right? He really doesn't put himself out there, and he's a very quiet guy and
How
doesn't
we
get talked about a lot, right? So if they did put him down there, they probably wouldn't get much action on him.
I know. I mean, but I'll take that number as long as I can get it, especially if we're on a PGA Tour event compared not like a major per se yet, but a PGA Tour event, especially elevated, only 7 new man field. It's I mean, it's almost stealing, I think, a 45 to 1 number.
Yep. And then the last guy I got this week, so we wanted to get one of a long shot in here. I got Ryan Fox plus 120,000. He's been playing great golf, right? At the PGA, he was leading for a little bit. He obviously won the Myrtle Beach tournament 2 weeks ago now, or 3 weeks ago now. So he's been playing consistently solid golf. I like his chances to, do a similar story to the PGA, get himself in contention early. He's been rolling the rock great. And it really is going to come down to, just getting himself in play off the tee, which he's been solid at, right? I mean, he's been better than the field in terms of driving accuracy, and his distance is top 10
Nope.
probably. He
Yeah.
absolutely bombs the ball. So if he can just get that putter rolling, approach the green has been solid, right? Over the last couple months, really going back to March, he's been solid approach the green. No, nothing crazy, but pretty much all in the positive except for 1 or 2 weeks there in the last 10 events. And then off the tee, right, he's been gaining strokes for a long time. So, those odds and his caliber of golf, I think it's a pretty good long shot to throw in there. He's won some big events over in Europe where, I don't think he'll be scared if he got into contention to really close it out.
No, I mean he's beat Rory, Hatton, Rahm. I mean
Yeah.
he's competed and beat all those guys. So it's not like a mental thing for him. It's just a matter of having his game in the right
Yeah.
spot, I would say.
Exactly. And now he's got the win. So, as we've seen in the past, that really changes a player's mindset and attitude to, rather just trying to survive, now they're trying to get themselves to the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, and he's not, like a young guy that's gonna like,
No,
maybe whatever you want to call it, just like some guys that might go the opposite direction, get a win, you relax. He's an older guy. He really doesn't, I don't think, have much to do other than hang out with family and golf. I'm assuming for the
no,
most.
yeah, he's a good family guy. He likes to cook himself a nice fat steak and have a glass of wine and
Exactly. So
relax.
I think that's really just like you said, gives him confidence and allows him to hopefully take another step in his career.
Yeah, no, 100%. So I got Ryan Fox 120 to 1.
I love that. And then my last guy, a bit of a longer shot as well. I think Rosie, could have a shot this week. He's at 110 to 1. And I really just think, Rosie's going to compete in some of these bigger events. He's not going to obviously compete week in, week out. We've seen that. He only pops up here and there, and that's usually whether it be a major or an elevated event. So, I mean, that's why I think a place like the Memorial should be a pretty. I don't know if the course is the best fit for him, to be honest, but I just think 110 to 1 with how he's shown up in some of these bigger events. Augusta, very firm greens, able to show up there with just, his iron play coming in. So I think it could give himself a chance, and I honestly just like the number at 110 to 1 and willing to take a shot on Rosie at some of these bigger name events.
Yeah, I mean, he hits it longer than you expect, right? He hits it straight. His irons, they're very solid when he's swinging it well, right? Sometimes he can get a little stuck and he gets that right miss going, but he's been playing solid golf all year, and I'm a big Rosie guy.
Hmm.
So I can see him, playing well in this and really solidifying himself for the Ryder Cup.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's probably already solidified,
Should be, yeah.
for sure. Obviously, just getting himself another good finish in a big tournament, obviously going to be a big, sort of locking it up in a sense.
Yep. So I do like that with Rosie as well. Those are two good long shots there. All right, and then I got one top 20 bet and two top 10 bets. Or sorry, I got a top 20 solo, then a top 20 parlay. So I'll do those to start. So I got top 20 Cam Young plus 300. We talked about he doesn't have great course history here, but looking through his stats, he's at least showing some positivity throughout the bag. It's never all paired together, really.
Needs it too.
But,
I mean,
right? But the last five, really the last like 8 out of the last 10 weeks, he's gained in putting, right? The last three, he's gained around the green, so he's finally chipping it better. Before that, he was chipping it terribly. So
yeah.
he's chipping it better. Approached the green, he finally had a good event at the Truist, right? Last PGA, slightly in the negative, but better than what he's been doing. Off the tee at the PGA was as good as he's done in a couple weeks.
Mhm.
The Masters, he was solid off the tee as well, and at the Valero. So three of the last five, he's almost gained a full stroke off the tee. Again, it's just going to be about putting that together for 4 rounds. So if you finish around par here, right, for 4 days, you're going to be close to that top 20 number. And I could see him grinding it out, getting one good 4 or 5 under round in there, and giving himself a
I
top
agree.
20
No,
win.
he has definitely been showing more signs lately. He drove it great at the PGA. I mean, I think he was probably top 5 or 7 in the field, whatever the number was. But I mean, he really needs it. I sent it to you earlier. Like
Yeah,
he's now in a qualifier for the U.S. Open. Like he is really losing his not maybe not
crazy.
status yet, but he's losing his like exemptions into these major events with world ranking points, everything like that. So I mean he needs it, or he's really going to be, potentially if he continues down this path on the. I don't know if that's losing his card end of this year, end of next year, but I mean he's really on a
Well, if
bad
he's not top 50 in the FedEx, he won't qualify for the
elevated
elevated
events, and
events.
then yeah,
Yeah.
you're all the non-elevated. So I mean it's a really big couple months for Cam coming up if he wants to one stay on the PGA Tour, but obviously keep himself as at least somewhat of a name that guys look at as a potential still star moving forward. It's just been such an ugly maybe 12 plus months at this point for him, it feels like.
Yep. Agreed.
All right,
You
but
have
yeah,
any top 20?
dude, I mean, right now, honestly, no. So you go over your parlay, and then when we post the picks, I'll post a couple top 20s.
All right. So my top 20 parlay is Finau, Straka, and Hideki plus 1086, plus 1086, a little over 10 to 1. I
I
spoke
like that.
about these three guys, right? Or John spoke about Straka. I think they're just playing solid golf, right? They're all good off the tee.
Yep.
Um, and I like their chances this week. So I got that top 20 parlay. And then I got two top 10 guys. So top 10, I got Matt Fitzpatrick plus 360.
He's been playing better.
Finally playing better, right? T fifth, tied for fifth here last year. Looking at the stats, he's gained total strokes gained in the last five events, right? So going all the way back to the Masters, he's been playing better golf without a doubt. Even at the Zurich, right? They missed a cut. His brother must play terribly. He
He
was
fired his caddy, right?
He fired his caddy, which, it seems like it's worked out for the better so far. So a top 10 at the PGA, where he really was in contention and then didn't finish well the
Yeah.
last couple holes. And the True was tied for 23rd, so he was a little bit better, did not putt well that week. So if he can get the putter going, I think he's finally feeling himself with the iron play a little bit, which is his key, right? When he's striking it well with his irons, he
Iron.
got pretty dialed.
Yeah, because I mean, we know he could roll it. We know he could, chip it pretty well. It's just a matter of like if I feel like his tee to green game is what's been struggling, and until the last month, 2 months at this point. So with that back, Fitz is a guy that's not going to really be around that, these odds that we're seeing for much longer once he pulls off, or continues to play like this.
Yep. And then my second top 10 is Max Homa plus 550. So, obviously he hasn't really had a great finish. He had T12 at the Masters, RBC played terribly, Truist tied for 30th, PGA. He was
That's
playing well, right?
yeah,
And then
played
he
great.
then he kind of fell apart on the weekend. So, excuse me. I see him getting himself back into that spot where he wants to be. So I'll
Yeah.
take Max Homa plus 550 in the top 10. He's played well here in the past. He's got two or three top 10s in the past 5 years.
I like that. I mean, I feel Max has definitely been playing better. I really don't put too much stock into his finish at the PGA. I think it was more important to see the
Yeah, that's
flashes
good
of
round.
good play, flashes of like good Max, good play, where he's able to extend full 18 holes like we saw on Friday there, and the finishes are gonna come. But I love that number for Max, especially with the some of that promise he's been showing lately.
Yeah, I was looking top 20 was like plus 200, so the top 10 plus 550, I think that's good value. And he's got good course history here and his game is starting to trend in the right direction. So try and get it early before his number shoots down as well.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love those. And like I said, for a couple top 20s, I'll post those once I post the plays on X. But outside of that, I got nothing else, at least pick wise for this week.
Yeah, no, it should be a good event. Again, Jack's place, he always makes it tough. It's always fair. And John, what is our Instagram? What's the tag? Bros on the green?
So Instagram, yeah. So follow the let's see. I always post it in the description, but our Instagram is just Brothers on the Green, spelt out exactly how it is on our YouTube channel, but no spaces. So just all one word.
All right, yeah, give us a follow. We're starting to grow a little bit. We'll hopefully the weather's been so up and down up here in the Northeast, so we'll be doing a member guest soon at my course in a couple weeks. Maybe we'll get some recording of that going, a couple shots, a couple play holes with me, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And give the people what they want. So we appreciate everyone listening in. If you are still here at this point, share this video for us, right? Help us out, and we appreciate all the support.
Yeah, and then so next couple weeks, obviously got the U.S. Open coming up, and we'll get some previews after that. But outside of that, like Bobby said, we'll get some golf content up, and let's get back on track, get another win this week before we have our third major of the year really coming up soon.
Yeah, it's crazy. The golf season really ends at the end of August.
I know it's that once it gets going with Augusta, it just seems like it sort of just
Yeah,
snowballs much quicker than the rest of the year.
I might have a better chance in the fall with the
Those,
smaller events.
those are the best. I can't wait for that.
Yeah. All right, we'll see you guys later.